Alright guys, so Ash and I are joined by a very special guest today. We have Terry Garrett, the blind gamer who recently completed his playthrough of Zelda Ocarina of Time, which he started almost 5 years ago. So we just thought we'd sit down with him and talk to him about his accomplishment and whatever else comes to mind. So Terry, welcome and thanks for sitting down with us.
Yeah, hey Ash, hey Andre, thanks for having me, I appreciate it.
Could you explain a little bit about how, what inspired you to start playing through Zelda and how you managed to stick with it for all this time?
Yeah, the YouTube videos came by when I was playing games from a company called Oddworld Inhabitants, which makes the Oddworld games like Abe's Odyssey, Abe's Exodus, and I was able to play those games because they had save state built into Abe's Exodus. And I told the company about it, and they ran with it, made an interview, and put it on YouTube, and it encouraged me to start doing my own videos. At the same time, while I was still in college, I actually figured out I could do Legend of Zelda emulated on my computer with the save states, so I actually started playing through that game back in college. I still couldn't pass the game 100% by my own, though I still need a little help. But after I started posting my YouTube videos, I'm like, well, I might as well do Zelda, and then make the commitment this time to go through and pass the game 100% with no help. Only ask questions but handle all the controls and do everything by myself and tape it and put it up there. And like you said, I started back in 2011, and there were a few interviews about me starting, and then just a couple of weeks ago I finished the entire thing, and a good way to start out 2016.
Yeah, I bet so. And I mean, 5 years to finish Ocarina of Time, that's a significant chunk of time by any measure, no matter what you're doing. 5 years is a long time. So how did you stay motivated for the whole period? Did you take any extended breaks, or did you almost just kind of want to say screw it at any point because this is taking so long, or how did you stay motivated?
So the reason it really took 5 years is I even went back and looked at some of the timestamps, because there was a year period where I was just cranking videos out left and right. But after I graduated from college, I actually moved to a new city and a new career, new apartment, and I didn't have friends to help me set up my external camera anymore that I was using before. So I kind of lost motivation there, because I'm like, well, how am I going to record the videos and make sure they're good enough quality? And with the newness in my life and everything, but I kept getting nagged by a couple of people on YouTube. It's like, are you going to start this up again? And finally, when I got my Mac back in early 2015, I finally figured out I could do screen capture with that, and that's what rekindled the fire to actually get that done. I still had all the original files and the emulator and everything, so I guess it was meant to be, and I just started sitting down and getting that done. I couldn't record as often as I wanted to, but it was really to be able to screen capture and do that again is what really motivated me to get that game done.
I got you. So at that point, though, when you restarted this quest again, then what point of the game were you at? Were you already some part of the way in, or?
Yeah, I just got to the Spirit Temple, so I had to start with the child part from that, and then make it all the way through the end of the game. So that's what a lot of people were like, "You're so close."
Yeah, you were really close. Okay. So actually, if you talk actual gameplay time, it was significantly less than 5 years. It was just kind of life getting in the way for some of that.
Yep, definitely. That's all it was life.
Nice, gotcha. That's even more impressive than it so it took you even less time.
Well, I'm more impressed that you're able to remember what you're doing. Whenever I drop a Zelda game and come back to it, I almost never remember what I was doing. I'm like, what was I even going for here?
Oh, when I picked it back up, it wasn't recording right away. I was like, okay, I got to get used to this game again. And I'm starting with the Spirit Temple. That's a good... after 2 years, it's like that's a kind of a heavy place to start.
Yeah, that's true. At least it beats a water temple, I think.
True.
Well, and speaking of the water temple, I mean, that's well known among gamers who don't have to contend with being blind, for being one of the hardest dungeons of all time, and not just in Zelda either. It's just so kind of obtuse and confusing. And was that particularly hard for you as well, or was it just kind of like, it's just the water temple, it's another dungeon?
Well, for me, since I had to use walkthroughs and video walkthroughs to figure out where to go next, so I wasn't completely in the dark, pun intended, it took a lot of the mystery out of the water temple, because the big one is to know where to go next and when to raise and lower the water level. So
right.
The water temple to me was just another dungeon, because I took a lot of that mystery out that a lot of people struggle with.
Sure, that makes sense.
we take for granted like sound being in games quite often. Like, you know, they are called video games, and people tend to focus on the video portion of them. And it's easy to forget how sound or how important sound can be. And you found a way to, you know, depend on sound really to get through these games. Could you describe that process a little bit?
It actually started when I started playing games that are actually developed for the blind. I'm actually doing a YouTube video series right now after I beat Zelda. There's a game called Shades of Doom, which is based on the old Doom games, but it's produced by GMA Games, and the whole game is for the blind. It's like a lot more sound in depth, but it's like a 3D shooter game. A lot of using navigational compass directions to navigate through the world. But it was that kind of game and a couple others developed by other accessible game manufacturers that gave me the skills to be able to listen in a 3D environment. So the way I approached Zelda was just like, it's just another video game like that. It just happens to have video with it. So, and then with the save state, I was able to basically use the trial and error and try things over again until I got it successfully.
Well, that's so cool, and you know, and Andre knows this. I'm a huge aficionado of video game audio. Like, I love video game music and sound. As Andre said, I think is really overlooked in a lot of games. So I was particularly fascinated by the fact that you basically had to use sound to get through the game. And I also don't even think I knew that Ocarina of Time, being, you know, an older game at this point, you know, I grew up with the NES, so it's hard for me to call that an old game. But, you know, I don't think I realized that being an N64 game, that Ocarina of Time had sound that was encoded that well to be able to be used for 3D audio. I don't think I even knew that.
Yeah, I didn't until I tried it, and then I figured out I could. Because the old NES didn't have it, of course.
Right.
Side-scroller games. And then I think games nowadays, they're getting more complex in their graphics and stuff, but I think the audio is actually getting really cluttered a lot of the time. They really focus on the explosions and the talking and the overlay, but they really miss out on the simple sounds that would make a game accessible. Because you can either make it, you can not have enough sound like the old original NES Mario games, or you can have way too much sound like Halo, where you just can't decipher what to listen for.
That makes sense,
Right.
and I feel like N64 games were simplistic enough in terms of their audio that it wouldn't get cluttered like that, like you see in a lot of current generation games.
Well, the way another gentleman I was talking to put it was, back then, their polygon 3Ds, you know what, it really wasn't working for them. They weren't wowed by the graphics as much as they are nowadays, so they had to put more into the audio as well.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah, I didn't think about it like that.
That's a good point. Now, I think actually Ocarina of Time was one of the earliest games to make some rudimentary use of surround sound. Like, they actually had a rear channel they could use in the game, if I recall correctly. Did you use that at all, or did you depend solely on stereo?
It's easy to tell if something's behind you. As to explain how to know that something's behind you, I can't. It's just how it's quieter somehow, maybe even slightly lower pitch, but I can tell if something's behind you.
Right.
So, but people have to discover that for themselves because it's really kind of hard to explain.
Well, that's so interesting because, yeah, I mean, last year I played through Majora's Mask 3D, and, you know, I was noticing that the audio was three-dimensional in terms of, you know, if you have a torch 2 links left, you'll hear out of your left ear, and you can slowly turn the link around, or the camera around, to kind of simulate that experience of the sound moving. But I had no idea that was part of the original version of Ocarina of Time. I think that's so cool.
Yeah, it just really lucked out. And there's several other games, like Mario 64 is like that too as well. So
Interesting, okay. Wow, I had no idea that these early N64 games are so advanced in terms of their audio programming. I love that. But so I guess backing up for a bit, why Ocarina of Time specifically? Why not, you know, maybe another 3D Zelda game or another 3D action RPG in general? Like, what caused you to hone in on Ocarina of Time specifically?
Oh, well, when I was very young, I grew up with the NES as well, and I had a limited sight, and so I could sit like a foot away from the screen and play most games. I had the original Zelda, the gold cartridge and the cool music and everything, and the awesome game. I could never pass that game though. I just didn't have the smarts for it. I could get like 7 pieces of the Triforce, and I found the actual final dungeon before you could actually enter it. You had to have the entire Triforce. But it was just that love of Zelda then, and then when I got into like middle school and close to high school, I had friends who were playing Zelda, and I'm like, oh, I know Zelda. They're like, well, you should see this Ocarina of Time. It's their first 3D one. And the Ocarina of Time, the reason it grabbed me so much was the old Zelda game was okay, but I just really think that the story and the role-playing got a lot more depth and width to it in Ocarina of Time.
Oh, for sure. I think that that was also billed back then as one of the first 3D cinematic game experiences you could have, alongside Final Fantasy VII and I guess Tomb Raider and other early 3D action games like that.
Yeah, totally agree.
Well, that actually raises an interesting question, I think. So a debate has been if Zelda games moving forward, if they should incorporate voice acting or keep it text-based. And I feel like you might have an interesting perspective on that.
Yeah, I don't know because Nintendo seems to be the one that really wants to hold on to like their text-based dialogue. And I don't know if that's like, well, we're forcing people to at least read, so or if they just are going with that because it's easier. I mean, they did Midna in Twilight Princess, and it's not English, and Fi in Skyward Sword, I think. Right. I've only seen that game one time, but the interesting thing is like if you actually go onto the net, some people have actually sat down and taken the time to actually write out the script in text. So I can actually go on find the script for those games and actually read them that way, so I kind of know what the dialogue is saying.
Oh yeah, well then I guess I imagine that probably helps you get into the game in terms of the context of the story and the world, more easily as well.
And a lot of the walkthroughs will have it too. Like they say, well, this character says this, blah blah blah.
Oh, of course, right.
So.
Well, I've seen some walkthroughs even written from the perspective of the character. Like they write it as if the adventure's happening to them. It's really
I've seen those too. It's a little weird, but
yeah.
Well, so we talked a little bit earlier about the water temple, how that was just another dungeon for you in your case. But was there a particular segment that stands out to you as being more difficult than any other? Like, what was your water temple in terms of just it being really tough to get through?
Yeah, it actually was in Zora's domain, so it involves water.
Oh, okay.
It was when you were a kid, and it's not even in a dungeon. It's in Zora's domain before you go to Jabu Jabu's belly. And you have to play that little game where they throw the rupees out the top of the waterfall, and you have to dive and get all 5 rupees in a time limit.
Geez.
It's like finding a needle in a haystack. Literally, I spent like 2 hours taping that, and it went down to like a minute. It takes me forever to do that part, but I finally get through.
To be fair, I'm pretty sure. At least I had a lot of difficulty with that part too. So.
No, I was gonna say that's not easy even when you can see what you're doing. I mean, the swimming controls are a little strange in Ocarina of Time, so that's not an easy part by any means.
Yeah, I have friends they struggle with it, and I'm like, I don't see why you're struggling. It's just 5 rupees. You just dive for it.
Nice.
Well, it sounds so easy to put it that way. Jeez.
Yeah, really. Well, then, on the other hand, were there any parts of the game that were a lot easier than you thought they would be? Like you were expecting to have a lot of trouble, and you were like, oh, well, this wasn't so bad.
Oh, that's a new question. The Spirit Temple.
Okay.
Bouncing the light off the mirror shield. I thought that would be like an impossible thing for me to do. Because to know, I can hear when the light is hitting your shield, but to know when it's actually aimed in the right direction, or right spot even. So, especially the part where you have to go into the top of the temple and you have to turn mirrors to face them the right way and bounce the light through like 2-3 mirrors.
Right, I remember that part.
And I had a friend actually tell me they didn't tell me like how much to turn, but they told me if you push it and you hear this sound, this is how much the mirror is turned by. So, and then I was able to figure it out using the sound of the light bouncing off the mirror shield and the save states just to figure out how much to turn those. So I thought those were going to be a huge struggle in the Spirit Temple, but they weren't.
So, what do you think when you come across like a sound-based puzzle in a game, is that like a relief to you? Like I'm thinking specifically of the Lost Woods in this case, where to follow the melody.
Yes. I've had sighted people struggle with that. I'm like, just use your ears. Jeez, it's not that hard. I've actually had a friend, Terry, come here. Like, which way do I go? That way. Oh, thanks.
Yeah, that's funny. I know a lot of people who had trouble with that too, and I never thought it was that confusing, but I imagine for you it's even easier.
Yes, it's not that hard.
Well, and speaking of, I guess, sound-based puzzles, do you find that you enjoy music games a lot? Like, either American stuff like Guitar Hero or Western stuff like Guitar Hero or other Japanese rhythm games? Like, do you like music games?
Yeah, I actually do have Guitar Hero. I had Rock Band for a while too, and I really enjoy both of those. I actually have a YouTube video of me playing Guitar Hero. I play one of the songs on hard. I can play most of all the songs on easy, most on medium, some on hard, and no on expert.
Okay.
Expert, they start throwing in like little tiny notes that it's really even hard to tell if you missed one or not. So, medium is actually the optimal difficulty for me to play on. For Japanese, the Rhythm Heaven games, I had a DS and I was playing Rhythm Heaven on that, and I was able to get perfect on all the levels but 3 of them, and then I got frustrated and quit. But
Nice. Well, you're talking to a kindred soul. I adore the Rhythm Heaven series, especially Rhythm Heaven Fever. They're such great games.
Is the Fever the one on the Wii? Or
yeah, Fever's the one on Wii, and then it's just Rhythm Heaven on DS.
Okay, yeah, I haven't tried it yet. I might have to. I have a Wii U now, so.
Oh yeah, then I highly recommend. It's really a great game. Super creative.
Awesome. Okay.
And I know Andre's tired of hearing about it because I always talk about, Rhythm Heaven this, and I
Every
wanted a
time,
Rhythm
man.
Heaven character in Smash Brothers. They're sick of me talking about it.
It doesn't matter what we're talking about; it'll just come up somehow.
Yeah. So going back to when you finished Zelda, this was such a long journey for you. How do you recall how you felt immediately upon escaping Ganon's Tower and realizing that you had done it, like you had finally finished?
Yeah, you know how many comments I've had about that? Because people are just like, you sound so, unenthusiastic.
I was gonna say that. I watched
Yeah.
a video, and it's like, oh, I did it.
It's like,
I'm done.
in 5 years, I passed Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Time. Because to me, I wasn't videotaping as much as I was. It would be like a video every couple months. And then I'm like, you know what? It's 2016. I'm going to get that stupid game done, post it to YouTube, and then that will be it. I'll never hear from anybody. Because after I took that long break and I came back, I lost most of my audience because most people thought I quit. So, when I came back and I was posting, I was getting 300 views on a video when I was getting over 2,000 before.
Right.
So I just wanted to get it done. And that's how I kind of felt. I'm like, I'm just going to get this game posted and done, finished. There you go. Wake up the next morning, look at my inbox, and I got 400 unread messages from YouTube comments. I'm like, what happened? Someone shared it.
Well, it's good that people are still into it.
Yeah, and then everybody shared it, and then people at work, it's like, you're on MSN and Vice. I'm like, really? So,
Wow.
Because they posted all over and they don't tell me until I hear from other people. But no, I was not expecting that response at all. It was just, to me, it was just like, I got that darn game done.
Well, it's great because, YouTube can be especially finicky, and social media in general, if you don't update every day, it can be incredibly unforgiving in terms of losing your audience and people just moving on.
Right.
So, I think it's great that people were still around and still cared. And I know that when I read about your achievement, I was actually on my honeymoon, and even despite that, I still, I was like, okay, I got to get into work mode for a second, and I messaged Andre, and I'm like, we've got to interview this guy. This is so cool. This doesn't happen every day, and so we wanted to get it done for sure.
Well, thanks. I said, I didn't expect this response, but I'm still happy to do this interviews and stuff, because the real objective I want to have with my YouTube videos is inspire others, and you can see a lot of that going on in the comments.
Well, that's good, especially considering how YouTube comments are generally kind of a source for vitriol and awfulness, but I'm glad to hear that the comments on your videos are pretty positive.
And those are there, but
yeah,
and most people, the funny thing is someone does that, and then I have enough YouTube fans to back me up, and they go beat him up for some reason. I'm like, hey, stop, it's okay. Why does that video have 300 comments on it? I'm like,
oh geez.
Well, someone brought up religion or something like that, and then they got into a fight. So just ignore it.
Always.
That'll happen. We're well experienced in that.
Yeah, for sure.
So, have you received any comments or feedback at all from any other blind gamers or people or other blind individuals who maybe want to pursue doing their own Let's Plays or anything else related to gaming?
Oh, definitely. I definitely have gotten a lot of messages. Unfortunately, it never really goes past the YouTube message stage. I try to message them, and the conversation kind of falls off. But I've also received messages from people who they are blind, or they know someone, or have a spouse that is blind, and not necessarily that they want to start this, but it's just inspiring to them, and they show them, and it's like, look what I can do, and inspire them. So I've definitely had an impact on the visually impaired community as well, I think. Well,
that's great, especially if that was kind of your original intention in the first place, that you've been able to affect the lives of others in that way. And in that vein, if there are other blind gamers listening to this interview, what would you say to them? Do you have any words of advice for maybe games they're struggling to beat or trying to stick with?
Well, I would say the biggest thing with a game that you're trying to is do the video walkthroughs and the text walkthroughs that I've done. That will give you a lot of idea of what's going on in the game that you're trying to play. If it's an older game and you can emulate it, so you have the save state feature, that's also great as well. The Guitar Hero games and Rock Band games and rhythm games have practice modes, so you're able to go through the songs section by section, so that's a good element. And then, of course, like having a group of friends to kind of ask questions and bounce ideas off of, and then the multitude of games out there that are developed for the blind. Just because they don't have any video or anything doesn't mean they're not hard. Like a company called Something Else makes a game called Papa Sangre and Papa Sangre 2, which are on the iOS platform, 3D non-video games, and they are tough. Like they're even harder for like sighted people than say blind people, but very challenging games.
Huh, interesting. I've never heard. I kind of want to go check them out now because that interests me. That not only are these games made, I had an idea, but I find it interesting that they're harder for sighted people than for blind people. So I'm really interested to see what.
I put friends with their headphones on and I'm like, okay, just listen to the instructions. And I'm like, Terry, I'm stuck. Where are you? First level. I'm like, really? You walk toward the musical notes, but I can't hear. Then listen.
That's awesome. I know I got to try this game out.
Yeah, Papa Sangre, Sengre, so on the iOS.
Okay.
I don't know if they have it on
out.
I don't know if they have it on Android right now or not, but you can check. So
cool. Well, I know you mentioned save states just now, and I know, Andre, this is kind of one of your questions, I think, about the idea of save states, and if it ever got confusing in terms of keeping track of the different save states you had, or keeping track of where you are, with all the different save states you're creating.
Yeah, I guess, jumping around, resetting to your previous point, do you ever find that confusing, or do you ever get lost by doing that?
Sometimes, yes. Luckily for me, I can create multiple save states. Mm-hmm. So I can save off important areas that I don't want. Because if you get to somewhere you die, and then you go back, and then you saved over your progress. And that actually, if you watch one of my water temple videos, I actually did that. I did a section to test it, and then I went to go tape it, and then I accidentally had saved already, so I couldn't go back. So there's a little bit. It's like, I goofed up. There's a there's a chest behind this wall, but I already bombed it and got it. So okay, let's just move on. So yeah, it has bitten me in the butt a couple times. So you just have, like a skill, you just have to keep track of how many save states and save off important areas if you can save more than one.
So were there any segments of the game that stood out to you as being particularly tricky beyond what we've already talked about?
There is one area that still confuses me to this day, and I cannot figure. I can't place it in my head. Zora's River, heading up that river. You have to do it the first time as a kid, and I avoid that river like the plague. I'll take the shortcuts. I'll take the shortcuts through the Lost Woods before I have to go up there.
Oh wow!
I hate that river so much.
Well, it's kind of a weird area. The way it's laid out is very strange.
It is.
Yeah, and then when you're carrying the chicken, and of course that blocks some of my hearing, and I'm like, oh gosh, what's going on?
Oh jeez.
Well, that's true. I didn't think about that. Yeah,
it's annoying by itself. I can only imagine was actually impacting the gameplay. Jeez.
Yeah. So yeah, Zora's River. I'm like, I don't know what's going on here. I just eventually make it up. I mostly to luck, I think. So.
Right. Well, so when you say, did you use any of the shortcuts? I know there's the one through the Lost Woods. I think it's the Lost Woods. Yeah. Did you use any of the stuff like the magic bean leaf or anything, just kind of float through when you had to go through Zora's River, or did you not bother with that?
I actually did that side quest. A couple of my videos is Link Got Distracted is what I called them. And I did several of the bean plants, but even the bean plants, I know they go out and then they come back in. There's no audio cue to tell me, okay, I've reached my highest point, now I'm going back in.
Oh, right, of course there isn't.
You kind of have to do it by timing. You kind of ride the whole thing, and you're like, okay, I'm just going to kind of guess about halfway.
Well, speaking of side quests, then, how much of the other side stuff did you do? Did you go for any of the heart pieces, or, extra heart containers or anything like that?
I think I got, 14 of the heart pieces. I'll have to go check again, because I say it in one of my videos. I got over 60 of the golden skulltulas, I know that. Heart pieces.
Oh, nice, okay.
I got several of the heart pieces, which helped me later. Did I do any I don't think I did any of the upgrades. So, yeah, I think it was mainly gold skulltulas and heart pieces. I dedicated a few videos just doing that stuff.
Yeah, I noticed you had a few extra heart containers. When I watched some of your stuff, I just couldn't remember exactly how many, or each Zelda game, of course, has
I would
a different amount of heart containers they get.
I would definitely have said 3 extra hearts. I'm not sure how many though. I know there's a total of 36 heart pieces, but I definitely didn't get not even half of them. But
gotcha. Well, Andre, do you have any other questions? Oh, I know you had one more, Andre, about the inventory, like keeping track of.
Was that you who asked that on the channel?
Did someone else ask this?
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, you know where I'm going with this. Like, how did you keep track of all the items you collected, and, like, how many is something you had left?
Okay, when it comes to, like, menus and stuff like that, I literally ask a friend's help. I'm like, okay, how is everything laid out and everything like that? When it comes to knowing what items I've picked up, in Zelda, I can't tell exactly what items I've picked up. The sound for Deku Seeds all the way up to, like, magic and stuff like that, it's all the same. Except for hearts, they're different. But there's no way for me to tell how many I have left unless I get at my bow and arrow and go ka-doing, 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 until I run out. And I'm like, okay, 17. So, and then sometimes if I know I'm going to go into a new area, I'll just go I'll go buy a bunch of stuff. Because I did get like the Giant's wallet, so I was rich. So I could just go like load up on everything and just call it good for like a particular temple or something like that.
Well, speaking of calling it good, now that you've finished Ocarina of Time, what's next for you? Are you gonna dive right into another Zelda game, or are you gonna take a break from Zelda for a little bit?
Well, there are 2 have been shooting out at me from the comments, and the 2 are Dark Souls, because I believe it's so popular right now, and Majora's Mask, because it would be the chronologically next step. And I've researched both, and to be perfectly honest, I'm gonna do Majora's Mask next.
That's one of my favorites. Good choice.
I couldn't do Dark Souls because it doesn't have. I can't emulate it, and I can't have save states. And people complain about the saving in that game anyway. Like, I've heard stories like you might be half an hour away from a save fire and get killed on the way there. So I'm like, oh, that's no fun.
It's not a very forgiving series at all.
Maybe I'll do a one-off game of it, one-off video, just kind of trying to play it. But Majora's Mask is definitely on the list. In the meantime, I posted a video of me doing the first level of Shades of Doom, which the graphics are horrible. It's just a black screen with a little mouse pointer right in the middle. But I told people, it's like, put on your headphones and just listen along with me. And the response I got from that has been so positive that I'm just going to go ahead and finish the rest of that game while I'm learning Majora's Mask.
That's awesome.
So it's only like 9 levels. It won't take me as long. So.
Well, I'll definitely check those out then. That sounds super cool.
Just one final question for you. What's your overall impression of Ocarina of Time now that they fully experienced it for yourself after all these years? What's your takeaway from the game?
And experiencing all those Zeldas that are after it and before, I think Ocarina of Time is definitely on the top 2 of my list of games for sure. All right. I do think Twilight Princess is better. I honestly do. I wish I could play that game so much. But the earliest system it was released on was GameCube, and it's hard to emulate GameCube. But maybe in the future they'll find a way to be able to, or I'll be able to get a system powerful enough to do so. But Ocarina of Time is definitely a game that I think will remain. Everybody will, even kids who were born 20 years later, will still know about that game. Hopefully, because it's just such a great game.
Well, I totally agree. Although I'm pretty sure you're just going to have set off a firestorm in our comments for this video by saying that you think Twilight Princess is better, because that's not something I hear very often, and that's an interesting opinion. But I'm sure there will be a lot of people debating that in the comments now.
It's like they took Ocarina of Time as their launch pad for it, and just made it even more depth. Like the temples are there's so much more mechanical and dynamical stuff. It's incredible.
Yeah.
So. But they're both, I know you can go back and forth on both games, but I think they're both excellent games. So, and Twilight Princess actually does have really good sound. So, they kept the sound, definitely, the sound quality for... I could play Twilight Princess, I know I could. If I could have the save states.
Awesome. Well, thank you for your time. We really appreciate you coming and doing this interview with us.
Terry, do you want to tell everyone where they can find you at?
Yeah, all I have right now, I'm a little tiny YouTuber, and... my channel on YouTube is Mega T Garrett, so Mega T and Garrett. And on there, if you just want to drop me a line, drop me messages. Messages on YouTube is the best way for me to get like a comment or a response quickly. I do read the comments. I have screen reading software on my computer, so I can read the comments and messages and everything. So drop me a line with your ideas, support, encouragement, anything. So I'm open to just getting to know people even through YouTube and everything. So.
Well, thanks again.
Yeah, thank you, Ash. Thank you, Andre.
Alright, and that about wraps up for us here. Thanks guys for watching. If you liked our discussion, make sure to like and follow us on Facebook and Twitter at GameXplain, and maybe go check out our new Patreon too that we just launched yesterday that offers all kinds of cool bonuses. Alright, catch you later. Bye.